EAL transition process. For the junior high schools, you will be collecting student learning profiles. You will be reviewing and updating the status of the EAL benchmarks, gathering student writing samples, completing the gates, completing a recommendation form, demitting students as needed. You will then attend a transition meeting and advocate for ESL classes. And in turn, our high schools will arrange transition meeting times, plan for ESL instruction through course selection, and advocate for ESL courses. So now we've seen all this on the screen here, we'll move forward and talk about each of these specifically. So the transition meeting, we did end up changing the date. It is a new date. We moved it to Tuesday, January 21st from 8:30 to 3:30 at the St. John Center for Arts and Culture. The reason we moved this date is that we realized we had previously had it on our year at a glance on the 22nd, and that's actually a day 6, and we know that our DLCTs are always busy in the morning on day 6s, so we've moved it one day earlier. So yeah, if you wanted to check in with your admin regarding this date that you may be out of the building, maybe for half a day, to come down to St. John for the transition meeting. Again, this is all something you can arrange with the incoming high schools. I know sometimes coming to St. John is inconvenient, so you set up meetings at the schools that are close to you or have your meetings on Teams. That's still absolutely acceptable. You can see here on the screen there is a link to register for high school transition meetings, and we will be sending an email tomorrow with this link to all DLCTs as well. Just a reminder of who to invite, and this is always a school-based decision. The junior high DLCT, the ELD teacher of your EAL students, and possibly the counselor would like to attend. And for the high schools, the EAL CT and possibly the counselor at the high school would attend the meetings. As part of the package or the email that you'll receive tomorrow, you'll get a link to this high school recommendation document. So the document looks like this. Each student who's being considered for high school ESL classes should have a completed high school recommendation form and a piece of evidence. So again, just a reminder, as always, the only students that you're presenting at these meetings are students who you are thinking will be registering in ESL classes the following year in grade 10. If a student is currently a level 5 and you imagine that they will be demitted at the end of the year and they are not going to require specific language supports moving forward, you would not present that student at the meeting. It's important to plan for teacher input for this form. A good idea to check in with the students' core teachers about what course recommendations they would have for that student, specific to the subject that they teach. Sometimes our students maybe their teacher would recommend a math class that would not be an ESL math class based on how they're performing in their class currently. So again, important to always check in with the teachers. A good tip as well is to make a copy of the completed form for yourself and the receiving high school. Once the registration is happening at your school, it's important that you have a copy and know which courses to place the students in, and the high school will need a copy for them for their planning for next year. Again, one more reminder, if you know you'll be demitting a student at the end of this school year, don't present them to the receiving high school. Moving forward to the GATES test administration, some of you might be new to this year, so we'll just go over how to do it and what you'll be looking for in your school regarding the resources that you need. So the first one you'll see is the student's question booklet. The booklet is teal colored. It says level 7 to 9 form S on it. There are 2 tests inside of this test booklet. There's a vocabulary test. This test takes about 20 minutes, or I'm sorry, it is a time test and the students only have 20 minutes to complete it. The second test is a comprehension test. Again, same thing, it is a time test and the students will have 35 minutes to complete it. The next material that you will need is the student answer sheet. You can see what it looks like here. This answer sheet is self-scorable. So when the students fill in the answer sheet, You will then be able to open it to another page. I'll show you an example of that on the next slide. And you will be able to score it based on that page on the back. It's kind of like where they put pencil through and it goes through to the next page. I can't remember what that's called, but it is self-scorable. Another book that you're going to need is the directions for administration. Because this is a standardized test, there is a script for administering the test. It does start on page 35. So if you flip to page 35 on the directions for administration, you can see the bolded text there is exactly what you say when you're administering the test. I know for myself, when I first started doing this test, I would follow the script exactly as they said, just to make sure I was following the directions of the standardization part of the test. So here you'll see some information about how you can score the gates. When the student has completed both tests, you will score it. Make sure to score it on the correct form. We are using Form S. So there's a picture there of what the inside of the scoring sheet looks like. So you kind of like perforate the edges and then open it up. And there's two options. There's a Form S and a Form T option. Make sure you're choosing the Form S option. You can see on the picture there that the pencil mark has gone through, and I completed this test, and you can see I did very well, got all the first part right there, because my pencil markings are inside the circles that show the correct answer. You will then need to also dig up in your school the manual scoring and interpretation book for the gates. You can see a picture of it there. You will use that manual scoring and interpretation book to determine the grade equivalent, or the GE as it's listed, for vocabulary comprehension and the total. You can see in the top right corner of the self-scorable answer sheet there that you look for the raw score for all the tests. You then add vocabulary and comprehension to get the total, and then the grade equivalent is found inside the booklet that's provided there. And again, if you have any questions about this, you can always reach out to your consultant if you need some support. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Aurelia here, and she's going to keep going with the transition meeting discussion points.
Thanks, Rebecca. So like Rebecca mentioned, if you and your receiving high schools choose to meet at St. John's Center for Arts and Culture, we wanted to provide you with a little bit of an outline of what that meeting might entail, what things you will discuss, and things that you wanted to be prepared with. So during your meeting, you'll present students that are being recommended for ESL classes in high school. And so during that meeting, you're going to start by reviewing the student's current EAL level, and that would look like reviewing the student's current benchmark level. And so by the time that meeting occurs in January, more than likely you will have updated at least one of the benchmark strands this year, because evidence is due on January 31st. The timing of this meeting is we use that week in January during exam break for our high school DLCTs to be able to attend. So it is a week earlier. So if it's not done by that point, don't stress about it. But you'll review the student's current EAL benchmark level. Next, if the evidence is available and uploaded to EdForms, you can review the piece of evidence. And if not, we ask that each student has a copy of a writing sample. And so, like I just said, that writing sample does not need to be in addition to the evidence collection that is being done. That can just be the evidence collection. It could be a writing sample or a speaking assessment. You're going to discuss the GATES grade equivalent score, and then we also recommend that you discuss any supporting members of the student's learning team. And that could be if this family or student works with a DWW, an Indigenous wellness worker. It could be agency supports. It could also be any academic supports, as if the student is enrolled in ELD, that would be important to mention, or any additional needs that may impact the student's day-to-day schooling. And then as a team, you're going to work together to reach consensus on grade 10 course enrollment. When we're looking at a student's learning profile, we know that there are many factors that will impact the student's language proficiency. We want to consider each student's unique factors and when we're recommending courses. So as the DLCTs of grade 9 students, you really know those students very well. And if ELD teachers can attend, we recommend that they would be able to attend. You really become that student's person within your school. And some of the factors that we look at that could be impacting a student's language acquisition would include the time that when they came to Canada, when how long they have been in Canada, their school experience previous to arriving to your school, what their literacy is like in home language, if they have attended any English courses previous to arriving to Canada. So all of these things will impact where we want to place students in their high school, as well as their current EAL level. So you can see here, when we're looking at our benchmarks, the most important piece of that benchmark is in red where it says with limited support, or with targeted support. Level 1, our focus is really for basic language skills to be developed. In level 2, this is when students may start to have the option to access option classes like phys ed and other options in high school, and they would start to receive credit for these things. Level 3 students would be able to start to access additional content courses for credit, and that could include CTF or CTS modules. And then our level 4 and 5 students will access content courses for credit, meaning that they move out of sheltered language instruction courses. And so the basic course selection may include ESL level 1 all the way up to level 4 courses. Making note that our ESL level 1 courses do not receive credit, but the other courses do. These courses, although numbered, do not exactly match our benchmarks. And so when we say that, we mean that just because a student is a level 2 doesn't mean that they need to live in the level 2 course or they will pass the level 2 course. Sometimes it does take students multiple tries to be able to achieve the outcomes with the level 2 course. And so with that, just making sure students are aware when you're picking courses and you're sharing the course recommendations with students that it does not mean that they will move through these courses semester by semester. They may need to take one of these courses multiple times to be able to really master the skills that are needed or the skills and outcomes in that course. These are just some of the ESL courses that we want to be discussing. Your high school CTs and counselors will share more specific courses that they may have available in their schools. So some schools offer ESL Introduction to Mathematics, ESL Expository Writing, Introduction to Canadian Studies, Introduction to Science, Reading 15, and then there's other varied courses that each high school may be able to offer. And so you'll discuss these with the high school DLCTs and counselors when you're picking courses. Here we just wanted to give a little bit of a recommendation of where students may fit in. So you can see for an ESL Introduction to Math 15, level 1, 2, and 3 students would be able to access that content. It does not mean that every level 1 student would be able to pass it, but we would recommend that they could be enrolled in the course to start their journey to passing that course. And some courses are recommended primarily for level 3 or 4 students like ESL Expository English. Our counselors do a wonderful job at creating these pathways for ESL students and creating a schedule that will eventually get them to these courses, but it's important to just know what's available prior to making recommendations. Next steps, and so tomorrow or the next day, look out for an email from your ELL or EAL consultant. Inside that email, you're going to get a transition memo, which kind of just reviews what we've talked about today in this meeting, a GATES overview with some of the information Rebecca had shared earlier, course descriptors, as well as the high school recommendation form. Just note on the course descriptors, not every course we spoke about today will be listed there because not every high school offers them. So you'll get a better picture of what your receiving high school will offer in their Pathways to the Future guide, which you should be receiving probably January and February, and when you meet with them here at the reception or at the Center for Arts and Culture. We're going to take a few minutes and answer some of your questions. I saw one was in the chat already. I tried to answer, but we're happy if you would like to unmute and just speak your questions as well. Hi, Lily. I saw your question about when can you begin administering the gates. You are more than welcome to begin administering the gates whenever. I know